Welcome to Dungeon Master Mailbox, where I answer your questions about D&D, DMing, and everything in between. If you have a question you'd love to see me talk about on the channel, you can send it to dungeonmastermailbox@gmail.com, and I might answer it in a future video. Without further ado, let's get started. Our first question comes from Gomez over at Gaming Treasure Chest, a channel that I've actually collaborated with on the channel. Gomez is awesome, he makes really great videos and sells really awesome 3D printed stuff he designs, like my wonderful loot dice box, so definitely go check out his stuff. But Gomez asks, how do you handle situations where players compare your campaign to well-known fantasy media? That is a fantastic question, and something that I actually struggle with quite a bit. I fall into that trap of everything needing to be original when I'm working on campaigns and coming up with story ideas. There's definitely that little voice in the back of my head that's going, oh, you stole that from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh, ooh, isn't that similar to that thing on Critical Role that you saw? And so when your players compare your campaigns to the media they like, it's really easy for that to end up bothering you and to feel like, oh, did I do something wrong? Is that really bad? So my main piece of advice with this is that most of the time, when your players are bringing up things that your campaign reminds them of, it's usually a compliment. If you're running this epic crazy battle and one of your players is like, man, this is just like Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings, they're not telling you that to make you feel bad. They're not telling you that so that you'll stop running this awesome epic battle. I don't know if you know this, Helm's Deep is awesome. If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, stop watching this video, go see it now, it's incredible. If they are comparing it to things they like, usually that's a compliment. So I try to just laugh it off and go, oh yeah, it is kind of like that, and then keep moving forward because you're all having fun, and that's a sign that they're enjoying what you're doing. Beyond that, whether you're working on prep yourself and it's your own kind of inner voice that's telling you you're copying something, or a player that's bringing it up at the table, try to remember that almost every single story you read is pulling inspiration from other places. There's very, very few things, pretty much nothing actually, that is completely wholly original. Take Star Wars, for instance. Star Wars is my favorite movie franchise. So many other stories look to Star Wars for inspiration, and yet even Star Wars, which is this really cool property that feels very unique, draws on so much other stuff. George Lucas used Akira Kurosawa samurai films as inspiration. He used World War II fighter footage, old Flash Gordon serials, the opening crawl that happens in the movies, that's taken from those old Flash Gordon shows that he really liked. So even Star Wars, which is something that other stories now draw on, had tons of inspiration itself. So much of creativity is taking ideas from the things that you like, adding your own spin to it, blending them together, and then creating something totally new. So it's okay if you're being inspired by other things. And if you have players that are really pushing you on it or that are bringing this up in a negative way, you can always remind them that, hey, you're not a professional writer. They're not paying you to do this. It is totally okay to take concepts and ideas and storylines from books and movies and video games that you like, as long as you're not trying to then sell it as your own thing. Because again, you're just doing this for fun. And honestly, a lot of player characters are just Batman reskinned or heroes from other stories that they like, that they are taking very kind of general liberties with and making their own for the narrative too. So hopefully that helps you next time one of your players tries to compare your campaign to something they like. Usually it's a compliment, you can just move forward from there. Try not to let it bother you. Have you stolen ideas from other D&D editions? Yes, I have. Despite the fact that I have only played D&D 5th edition, maybe my favorite mechanic in the whole game actually comes from 4th edition, and that is skill challenges. I love them so much, I made an entire video about them, but if you've never used them in your games, basically, anytime your party comes across an obstacle that they can take on together as a team, you can use a skill challenge to see whether they succeed or fail. So, for example, maybe your party gets a map through a desert, and it's going to take them 2 weeks, so it's going to be this really hard, arduous journey, but you don't want to roll every single day or role play through every single day of that journey. So how do you use mechanics to abstract it in a way where it's still a challenge, but you can get through it a little faster? Well, that's where you use a skill challenge. Basically, each player describes how they're going to help take on that task, and then you have them roll a skill against the DC you set, and they need to hit a certain amount of successes before they get a certain amount of failures. So in this case, one player might use perception to look for any dangers that are on the horizon. Another player might use investigation to check out the map that they have and see, okay, can I keep us on track? Do we know where we're going? A third player might use survival to scrounge up any supplies they can find to replenish the food and the water that they're losing. And then if they get enough successes, great. They get through the desert just fine, they make it where they're going. But if they get too many failures, then maybe there's combat that now they have to fight. Or maybe they start rolling against exhaustion because they've been out here longer than they expected. And so you can use skill challenges for all sort of things. You can use them for wilderness travel, you can use them for chase scenes, you can use them even for social interactions. Maybe they have to make this big speech in front of a congress of one of the nations that's out there, and they're trying to convince them to send aid their armies to help with the player's kingdom way back miles away. And so each of them is taking a different tact and approach to how they're trying to appeal to these nobles that are part of that congress. And that's a skill challenge. Skill challenges are awesome. I use them all the time in lots of different ways. I suggest you use them too. And so that is one mechanic from a different edition of D&D that I've stolen and now use in 5e. But one of my goals for this year with TTRPGs in general is to play more systems so I can learn what's out there and take different mechanics back to my D&D games and make my games even better. So if there are really cool mechanics or systems out there that you've played or you've tried that you think I could benefit from, I'd love to hear them in the comments. So hopefully that answers your question, Roger, and hoping to learn even more this year that I can steal too. Our next question comes from JJHill001, who asks, I was wondering if you had any favorite non-official sources for monsters or adventures, paid or unpaid. So I'm probably not the best player to ask about this. All my adventures tend to be homebrew, and I usually stick to the things that are in the monster manual and the various splat books that I've gotten. And if I need a new monster, I usually homebrew it myself. But there is one place that I do get a lot of inspiration from, and that is Reddit. I know Reddit has a bit of a reputation for being kind of the cesspool of the internet, and it definitely is, but it really just depends on what subreddit you go to, and there are a ton of D&D related subreddits where you can get tons and tons of free content. For example, there's r/D&D homebrew and r/unearthed arcana, both places where you can get subclasses and classes and magic items. So lots of things for players, but also the dungeon masters can use. There's r/D&D behind the screen, which has tons and tons of resources for dungeon masters, from entire adventures to monster breakdowns. I've even posted some of my own stuff on there, so if you see one of my posts, leave a comment. You also have r/battle maps. Both of the campaigns that I run are online, and so I steal maps from there all the time to use in Roll20. So that's a really great place if you don't want to go online and make your own maps, where you can find maps for pretty much any kind of battle that you'd ever want. And then last but not least, there's r/DM Academy, which has tons of really great tips and ideas for new dungeon masters, and is a place where you can go if you have questions and get answers from people that are a little bit more experienced. So if you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for just a treasure trove of free resources, lots and lots of the D&D subreddits are a place to go where you can pull that kind of stuff from for absolutely free. There is one publishing company that I do want to call out, and that is the sponsor for today's video, Homie and the Dude, and their original setting, The Wandering Tavern. The Wandering Tavern is a Studio Ghibli-inspired TTRPG setting, built to be system agnostic, but stats for D&D 5e are included too. A giant airship filled with intrigue, the floating city is a traveler's paradise by day, and a haunt for all kinds of spirits at night. It's like a mix between Spirited Away and Castle in the Sky, which just so happen to be my two favorite Ghibli movies. It's packed with everything you need to craft a campaign, from story essentials like plot hooks and mysteries, to creature stat blocks and battle maps for thrilling combat encounters. If you already have your own setting, that's fine too. The Wandering Tavern is the perfect pit stop for your players to visit, whether for a single session or an entire arc of your story. It is impossible to read through all of the content they put together without having your imagination run wild. I used it to create a one-shot for some of my players, and we had a ton of fun exploring the tavern and uncovering some of its secrets. It's obvious how much love and attention went into the book, from the beautiful artwork to the actual recipes they've included, which you can make at home. I really can't recommend it enough. If you're interested in getting a copy of The Wandering Tavern, or checking out some of the other content Homie and the Dude have put out, head over to hatdbuilder.com and use the code BARD15 to get 15% off anything you purchase. It helps me out, helps out a bunch of cool people who worked on the book, and helps you out, because you get access to such fun settings. Thanks again to Homie and the Dude for sponsoring the video, and let's move on to our last question. So the last question comes from Nicholas, who asks, do you have any funny recurring gags from your campaign? What do your players think of them? So there's one that comes to mind, and basically my players had just arrived in a new city. They were looking for a magic item shop, so they came across Caden's Closet. Picture the world's worst pawn shop. There are just shelves and bins full of trinkets and knickknacks and odds and ends. And sort of the concept of this store was that they could roll to see if whatever they were picking up was actually magical or not, and it might have a little minor effect. So one of my players, I think played by my younger brother, he picked up a fake eye and was like, hey Caden, is this actually magical? So I had this shop shopkeeper, who Caden himself was a dragonborn, very kind of out there, wear this robe of many different colors. I had him roll an Arcana check, and he got a natural 1. And so in that moment, I decided that Caden had no clue. He didn't know if anything was actually magical or not, and so he just assumed everything was magical. So he started describing all of these crazy effects that all of his little knickknacks and trinkets could do, and all of the crazy sellers who brought them in, just the most powerful mages and warlocks who would give him these things. And it was very obvious for my players, any kind of insight to tell, he didn't really have any clue. It was funny, they liked interacting with him, they bought some stuff, some of it was magical, some of it wasn't. Great. Then they move on. And then sessions later, when they're in a different town, they're looking for a magic item shop. I didn't really have something written up that they were looking for, so I improvised, and I came up with Hayden's Closet. And they walk in, there's a different dragonborn, different colored scales, same multicolored robe, same personality, same cluelessness as to what they have in their shop. And so basically they got to interact with them again. But of course, when they asked them about Caden, they hated Caden. Their shop was nothing like Caden. And so as they've gone around the setting to different cities, they found multiple of these different closets run by all of these different dragonborns, just a sprawling family. They even at one point came across Aiden's closet, the original, the patriarch of the family who started it all. And so they've gotten a kick out of getting some minor, in some cases actually pretty decent magic items. They've interacted with them in different ways. One of my players learned that he gets to use detect magic to kind of figure out what is or isn't magical, and so he's become the favorite of all these different shopkeepers. He's helping them actually sort through their goods and figure out what might be worth something and what isn't. So they enjoy the gag, I like the gag, and it all came from just a little bit of improv. So sometimes those bold, dumb choices that you make can have far-reaching effects in your campaign that lead to a lot of fun for everybody. That's it for this Dungeon Master Mailbox. Thank you so much to everybody who submitted questions. I literally could not make these videos without you. If you submitted a question and I have not answered it yet, you don't need to submit the same one. There's still a chance I can answer it in a future video. But if you have more questions, or if this is the first time you're hearing about it, send any questions you have to dungeonmastermailbox@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you, and I might use it in a future video. But thank you all so much for watching. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to the Bard College. I make videos all about D&D, DMing, and everything in between, so stick around. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.